So in this session we will be discussing this Navier-Stokes equation for incompressible Newtonian fluid. See, for x direction the general Navier-Stokes equation is having a form which we have derived just in the previous session as this. Right? So, if we are talking about this incompressibility and at the same time this Newtonian fluid, actually we have to substitute or what here? What will be the simplified expression if I substitute this Newton's law, what we have derived for tau Ix and tau Zx, and additionally for the normal stress. So here we have to first know how these stress they are related to the different velocity gradient components and different other hydrodynamic parameters. This I am not going to prove because it requires tensor calculus and the tensorial approach of equating this shear stress to this rate of this velocity gradient and different other hydrodynamic parameters like pressure. So directly I will write the final expression for Newtonian fluid for tau Xx, tau Ix and tau Zx, right? And additionally for all the others also we will write, okay? Which we have already derived like from the symmetry of the stress tensor like tau Ix is equal to tau Xy, tau Zx is equal to tau Xz, etc. So you see that these are called Stokes stress equation. What are they? First, it is the shear stress already derived from this generalization of Newton's law using the concept of angular deformation, which gives you tau Ix is equal to tau Xy mu del u del y plus del v del x. Additionally, tau Zx is equal to tau Xz is equal to mu del u del z plus del w del x, and tau Zy is equal to tau Yz mu del v del z plus del w del y. Right? So here for normal stresses it will be tau Xx minus p minus 2/3 mu del dot v, this I am not deriving, plus 2 mu del u del x. Tau Yy is equal to minus p minus 2/3 mu del dot v plus 2 mu del v del y, and tau Zz will be equal to minus p 2/3 mu del dot v plus 2 mu del w del z. You see, there is a symmetry of this structure, mathematical structure, and it corroborates with one of my statement which I have just discussed but without proof. Here also we are not proving it. In this Reynolds transport theorem coupled with Bernoulli's equation where, not Bernoulli's equation, Reynolds transport theorem coupled with the first law of thermodynamics where we were deriving this Bernoulli's equation. There are mentioned that if the viscous effects are not very prominent, then for incompressible flow, this tau Xx or the normal stresses is nearly equal to this minus of pressure. Here tau Yy also equal to minus of pressure, tau Zz equal to minus of pressure, provided if it is incompressible and at the same time if the viscous effects are not very prominent. Viscous effects not very prominent means generally the viscous effect proliferates through these cross derivatives like del u del y or del v del x or del w del z, etc. But not in del u del x. So for high viscous effects, we will have a non-zero terms of del u del x or del v del y or del w del z. So these terms will actually drop down if the viscous effects are not very prominent, and additionally this incompressibility, we know that for incompressible flow it is del dot v equal to 0, right? But in deriving Navier-Stokes equation, we will consider these terms, correct? So for incompressible flow, tau xx is equal to minus p plus 2 mu del u del x, and similar for this tau yy and tau zz. Now let's first simplify this del tau xx del x plus del tau yx del y plus del tau zx del z term. So this is del x of minus p plus 2 mu del u del x plus del y of mu into tau yx. So tau yx is del u del y plus del v del x plus del z of mu tau zx. So del w del x plus del u del z, right? So this is going to give you minus del p del x because of this. Now you see the pure second order derivative, here we are having pure second order derivative del square u del x square, here also pure second order derivative, and here this and this will be giving you a pure second order derivative. Now let's group the pure second order derivative term, and we will be taking out of these two, we will only take one. So what will be the expression? That mu into del square u del x square plus del square u del y square plus del square u del z square. Now the additional group will be, see this del x, if I consider this operator, that del x, here the term is del u del x plus this one was a leftover for this term. So what is that? Del y of del v del x. So del x, if we interchange the order of the derivative, here it will be del v del y, and here it is del z of del w del x. So del x, if we just do it later and interchange this order of the derivative, it will be this. And this entire term, you see, it is del dot v, which is 0, because it is incompressible. So because it is incompressible flow, this term reduces to 0. So this entire group of term reduces to this expression. So expression for x direction will become rho into del u del t plus u del u del x v del u del y plus w del u del z is equal to rho gx minus del p del x plus mu del square u del x square del square u del y square plus del square u del z square. This is the x directional term. Y directional term, rho del v del t plus u del v del x v del v del y plus w del v del z is equal to rho gy minus del p del y plus mu del square v del x square del square v del y square del square v del z square. And for z, rho del w del t u del w del x plus v del w del y plus w del w del z is equal to rho gz minus del p del z plus mu del square w del x square del square w del y square del square w del z square. So these are the scalar equations, scalar Navier-Stokes equation for Newtonian incompressible flow. So general vector form we can write as rho into del v del t plus v dot grad v is equal to rho g minus grad of p plus mu into grad square v. Right? So this is the Navier-Stokes equation form for Newtonian incompressible fluid. Now you see, it's actually a conservation equation of moment, linear moment. And this rho g term, and this is what? This is basically the inertial term, mass into acceleration. This is the acceleration term and this is the mass per unit volume, right? So mass into acceleration. And here these are the net force terms. Some are the generator terms and some are the dissipated terms. What are the generator terms? Generator terms will be, this may be rho g and minus of grad p may be generator as well as dissipator. Okay. How come it is possible? Like, I have a pipe, a horizontal pipe filled with liquid. Now you orient it vertically. Immediately the momentum will be generated. Okay. The momentum will be generated and the liquid start falling downward. So rho g, if properly oriented, if we are thinking of motion in this direction, this will be a generated term. However, if in the same pipe we have given pressure gradient such that the flow will be from bottom to the top, then rho g will be the dissipated term for the momentum. Whereas at the same time, this grad of p. Now you see the grad of p, whenever I am giving a pressure gradient, pressure difference between the 2 points in a pipeline or something, right? So then there will be a flow in the direction of decreasing pressure. However, you think that a pipe, again it's vertical, and because of gravity there will be drainage of the liquid. However, I have given an upward pressure gradient. Right? So intended motion of the liquid is in the downward direction, but I have given an upward pressure gradient. And here the pressure gradient may be functioning as a dissipator. And viscous force will be always acting as a dissipator. Right? Viscous force will be always acting as a dissipator. So these two may act as a generator or dissipator. This will be acting purely as dissipator. And this is the inertial term. So that's the overall in sense of transport. So that is the momentum transport equation. Okay. Now Navier-Stokes equation assumes the form of something called Euler equation if I drop this viscous term. Right. So drop viscous term. It becomes rho. Now we can write it as capital ddt of v, which is same as this, because this is equal to capital dv dt. So dv dt is equal to rho of g minus grad of p. Right? So that is called Euler equation. Now Euler equation, basically it is very important to have this understanding of Euler equation for a specific coordinate system called streamline coordinate, and there the Euler equation has got some special utility. I will discuss it without proof, just the form of the Euler equation in streamline coordinate, and we will see one of its applications. So the topic here is Euler equation in streamline coordinate. Right? Then you see what is the streamline coordinate. If I think of this is z, say this is y and this is the x direction, and we have streamlines like this. Okay? And let's say this is the fluid particle, and the respective radius of curvature for this specific streamline at this point, let it be r. So this direction is a direction n, which is representing normal to the direction of streamline, and along the streamline we are using another coordinate called s, right, which is the streamline coordinate. S is basically the streamline coordinate. So instead of this x, y, z, we are using two coordinates here. One is along the streamline, another perpendicular to it, and this is some angle. So what will be the Euler equation along? So definitely it will be two. There will be two equations along S and along N. So along S, it will assume a form minus of 1 by rho del P del S minus G del Z del S is equal to this del V del T plus V del V del S. These along S direction. And along N direction, it will be 1 by rho del P del N plus G del Z del N is equal to this V square divided by R. And this is very, very important, because once you are changing the coordinate system, pseudo force. See, actually there are two different types of pseudo force. We will not go into the detailed discussion. One is centrifugal force, another is the Coriolis force, particularly important in hydrodynamics. Now actually there is nothing if you view the equation from Cartesian coordinate. Once you change this coordinate system to cylindrical or spherical, these two pseudo forces will appear, right? And that's why, if definitely a force which is absolute must not be dependent on coordinate system. It should be universal. But this centrifugal force is specifically, it will appear, we will also see the general form of the Navier-Stokes equation in cylindrical coordinate, and there we will see that two additional terms are coming up. One is this centrifugal force, another is this Coriolis force, right? So here we are not having the Coriolis force, only the centrifugal force appears, because the Coriolis force appears through certain connection in the inertial term, and basically here we have chosen a specific coordinate, so that's why there is no Coriolis force. However, we have the centrifugal force. And this del Z del N and del Z del S, what it represents? Basically, it is the component. If I think that this is beta, so there is a gravitational term G, and we are taking the component along S, we can also take the component along N. So from there, this beta can be expressed in the form of the derivative del Z del S and del Z del. So in most of the cases, what will happen, these two gravity terms, because it is inviscid, so these two gravity terms mostly are to be dropped. Right? Now what is the problem? So let's discuss the application of this Euler equation in streamline coordinate with respect to a problem. Now what is the problem? See, the statement, it's given in the handout in this page number 50, and the problem is what? The flow rate of air at STP, standard temperature pressure, in a flat duct is to be determined by installing pressure tap across a bend. Like this is a bend and this may be the duct, let's say. Right. Across a bend. The duct is 0.3 meter deep. So this is basically 0.3 meter. And 0.1 meter wide. This is 0.1 meter. The inner radius of the bend, somewhere here, the inner radius of the bend is 0.25 meter. If the measured pressure difference between the pressure taps, so pressure taps are where? Here, and another is on this wall, here. So here we have attached, let's say, a manometer along a specific radial direction, and the delta P is equal to 40 millimeter of water, and air is flowing here. Now think that this is definitely frictionless flow, because whenever it is gas, its viscosity is very low, so we can safely assume to be incompressible, inviscid flow. Additionally, for this time being, though it is you cannot directly justify, but for the time being, as we have to apply this equation, and this equation is coming out from the incompressibility assumption, let's also assume that air is incompressible here. And it's having uniform velocity, because velocity gradient and velocity profile we will not be bothering upon. So if I neglect, if I neglect this gravity term in the n directional equation, we can write that 1 by r, and this coordinate, let's say it is r, right? And here this is small r1 is equal to capital R, and here r2 will be capital R plus 0.1, because this is 0.1. So 1 by r dp dr is equal to v square divided by this 1 by rho, it is 1 by rho dp dr is equal to v square divided by r, for any streamline which is like this, right? So this 1 by rho into delta p is equal to v square into ln of r2 by r. And here from you can see that delta P, which is simply the level of water, into rho H2O minus rho AR into G. So we can solve for this delta P, and we can substitute it here. R2 and R1 unknown. We can solve for V, and V multiplied by this 0.3 into 0.1 will be giving you the flow rate in meter cube per second, right? So this is the typical application of Euler's equation, which we can use here in order to solve this flow rate from a different type of measurement. Generally, for viscous flow, what happens we will discuss when we go for this flow measurement, that along a pipe we attach manometer for restrictions like orifice or venturi. But here what we are doing, we are applying the pressure tap in the transverse direction over a specific bend. And the bend generates the centrifugal force, and because of that there will be pressure difference between these 2 points. And from using Euler equation we can actually solve for the velocity, provided we know that pressure reading at these 2 points. So that's basically the use of Euler equation, right? So we have used Euler equation, and we have from Navier-Stokes equation, and with Navier-Stokes equation later we will solve many other problems. But now we are going to introduce a very special idea of fluid mechanics, and where from we had get questions, and that is called stream function. That is referred as stream function. Okay. So So you see that let's consider a specific type of flow, and that is two-dimensional incompressible flow. Right? In two-dimensional incompressible flow. Now say you want to solve this. Velocity profile for a two-dimensional incompressible flow. So what we have to solve? First, continuity. That is del u del x. As you see here, two dimension means only x and y, and there are two velocity components u and v. So del u del x plus del v del y equal to 0. And Navier-Stokes for x direction, that is rho into u, say del u del t plus u del u del x plus this v del u del y is equal to minus of del p del x. Let's say the gravity of this, there is no body force along x and y direction. Then mu into del square u del x square plus del square u del y square. Right. Okay, so, and also the Navier-Stokes for y direction, rho, that is del v del t plus u del v del x plus v del v del y is equal to minus del p del y plus mu del square plus mu del square v del x square plus del square v del y square. Right? So three equations for three variables. So with proper boundary condition, you can solve that u as a function of x and y, v as a function of x and y, and w this p as a function of x and y. However, this may be or x and y and t as well, because there will be these unsteady state. So this x and y and t, this is three equations, there are three unknowns, and we have three independent variables t, x and y. So we need the proper initial and boundary conditions. Right? So overall, the task is mathematically quite complicated. So if we can reduce the number of equations, maybe our objective is what? If we can reduce the number of equations upon grouping the variables or introducing a new type of variable which is common maybe, right? So solving that, we can actually go for solution of that system, and from there we can maybe getting u, v and t. Generally, if this is the mathematical structure of a system, then analytical solution is practically beyond the scope. We have to go solving this system of equation numerically, and which is also not so easy. So this is stream function originally appears as a mathematics, right? It's a mathematical approach. But after that, once it was introduced, people found that there are a lot of other physical interpretation of that stream function. So what is the objective? Objective is we will introduce certain single variable such that we can get rid of the continuity equation, and we will combine these two equations into a single one. Right? Into a single equation by changing the value. So continuity, in order to just drop this out, that was the objective. And what is the form? Del u del x plus del v del y equal to 0. So we will try to group u and v into a single variable. So we introduce a continuous and continually differentiable variable xi, function of x, y, right, as x, y, t maybe, no problem. such that u is equal to del xi del y and v is equal to minus del xi del x. This is the defining equation for psi. Correct. So once you write that, you see continuity is automatically getting satisfied by its definition. By its definition, continuity is automatically getting satisfied, so you don't have to solve continuity in conjugation with the Navier-Stokes equation, right? And this xi is called string function. Why? Why xi is called string function? So you see that continuity is getting satisfied. Now along a streamline, we know that what will be the equation for 2D flow? Du dy dx is equal to v by u. That means u dy minus v dx is equal to 0. So if you substitute the definition of u and v in terms of this stream function, we get del xi del x dx plus del xi del y dy, which is basically equal to d xi, and that's equal to 0. So xi is equal to constant along a streamline, right? Xi is a specific type of function which remains constant along a streamline, and that's why it is named as stream function, right? So that's why it is being referred as stream function. Next, there is another issue or another physical interpretation. Let's say you have xy space and there are two adjacent streamlines marked by stream functions xi1, stream function value xi equal to xi1, and here the stream function value xi equal to xi2, right? We want to calculate the flow rate between a lock between these two streamlines, because we know that there will be no flow across the streamline, as streamline is something to which the local velocity vector is always tangential. So that's why there is no possibility of having flow across the streamline. So whatever enters here must leave here, right? And we want to calculate the flow rate which is locked between two adjacent streamlines. So that's why we may consider plane or vertical line. Let's say this P1 is equal to x1 comma y1, and P2 it is x1 comma y2, and perpendicular to it we have u. So q per unit depth, so w is the width in this perpendicular direction, it's y1 to y2 u dy. So you can write it this del xi del y dy from y1 to y2. Now you see along this line x is not changing, so dx is equal to 0. So even if you write that del xi del x dx, basically it is equal to 0. So overall it changes to d xi from xi1 to xi2, eventually giving xi2 minus xi1. So the difference of these stream functions between this adjacent streamline, the difference of the stream function will give you the flow rate per unit depth, right? The flow rate per unit depth. So our next point is how to write then the Navier-Stokes equation combining into a single equation. So we will now try to write the Navier-Stokes equation in terms of the stream function. Right? Now you see this x directional Navier-Stokes equation is ddt of u is minus del p del x plus mu into del square u del x square plus del square u del y square. Fine. And y directional one is dv dt is minus of del P del Y plus mu del square V del X square plus del square V del Y. Now the point is, we have to group it into a single equation, and our basic objective that as we are not relating xi to pressure, so we have to do something in order to eliminate this pressure term, because if pressure is present in that target single equation, then it will be practically impossible to solve. So pressure, how we can just remove? If I take the derivative of this equation with y and derivative of this equation with x, and then we subtract, right? So what you can do here, that taking the derivative, operating it with del y. So what you will get? Capital D dt of del u del y is equal to minus of del square p del y del x plus del x of, or rather we can write it as del square del x square plus del square del y square, this operator operating on del u del y, right? And this, if you take the derivative with respect to del x, it is capital D dt del v del x, capital D dt del v del x equal to minus of del square p, this del x del y is equal to del square del x square plus del square del y square operating on del v del x. Now we subtract these two equations. We simply subtract these two equations and we get that d dt of del u del y minus del v del x is equal to del square del x square plus del square del y square operating on del u del y minus del v del x. Right? So now you see this term, that is del u del y minus del v del x. In terms of stream function, it will be equal to what? Del square xi del y square plus del square xi del x square. So it is a Laplacian of the stream function in two-dimensional coordinate, where, because it is restricted to two-dimensional flow, this is del square del x square plus del square del y square. So you can directly write that capital D dt of Laplacian of xi is equal to Laplacian of xi. So here this mu is missing, and here, the rho is missing. So it will be rho, and here it will be rho. So this rho and here mu, so we can get nu. So it is nu into grad to the power 4 psi. So my final equation is d dt of grad square xi is equal to nu grad to the power 4 psi. So definitely the order of this differential equation increases. Previously it was a second order differential equation. Now it has become a fourth order differential equation. However, we have to solve only a single variable. We have to solve a single variable xi. So once we have solved it, next definitely we can, from the first equation we can get what is del p del x and what is del p del y, because xi, if you solve xi, you will definitely get the field expressions for u and for v. So you can numerically evaluate these derivatives and get this del p del x and del p del y, and from there you can get the solution for the pressure. So the utility of the stream function in general, what happens that we are introducing, originally our objective was purely mathematical. We had to solve three equations to actually simulate the velocity and the pressure profile for a 2D incompressible. So what we did, there were three partial differential equations. One is a first order, that is continuity, and two the x directional and y directional Navier-Stokes equation. And these are second order equations. So what we did, we introduced a common variable psi such that the continuity getting null and void, it will be automatically satisfied. And that's why we introduced this definition that u is equal to del psi del y and v is equal to minus of del psi del x. So with that we have worked, we have actually, and we have shown that psi has got some physical attributes as well, which is that psi remains constant along a streamline. That's why we have referred it as stream function. And additionally, between the two streamlines, the flow rate per unit depth is equal to the difference of their stream function. That is also a property corroborating to some physical characteristics. And next, with the introduction of psi, we have grouped these two Navier-Stokes along x and along y directions into a single equation in terms of psi. So definitely, as we are reducing the mathematical structure, we are compressing this mathematical structure, the non-linearity or the order of this differential equation also increases. So previously it was a second order differential equation, these two Navier-Stokes equation, and now it will become a fourth order differential equation, right? So you see that you can also use this definition of stream function to any two-dimensional flow. It may be a cylindrical coordinate, and in that reference it's definitely important to note that what will be the cylindrical coordinate definition. So VR will be equal to del psi del theta into 1 by r, and v theta will be minus of del psi del r. So these we are going to use. So that is the stream function in cylindrical fluid. Right? So now you are going to introduce another very similar function to psi, but it is valid for, it's called velocity potential. Right? Represented by phi. However, this definition is valid for 3D or any dimension in viscid flow. You see, for in viscid flow, this cross product of, or not, rather the curl of this velocity vector is equal to 0. So curl of this velocity vector is a null vector, right? In viscid flow, right? And we have a vector identity that curl of grad of any scalar field is also equal to 0. It's an outcome of a very well known vector identity. So what we can think that for an inviscid flow, then V can be represented as a grad of a scalar field, and to impart certain physical identity in it or physical meaning in it, what we do, that just like temperature is a thermal potential, from high temperature heat always flows to low temperature, and in concentration in Fickian diffusion, from high concentration mass or molar fluxes that moves or that flows in this, or rather it diffuses to low concentration. So here we will think that this reason of that velocity is the velocity potential. The fluid moves because there are heterogeneity in this velocity potential field of the function phi. So, and it's moving from high potential to low potential, so we'll forcibly put a minus sign, right? And this is physically justified. So definitely u in Cartesian, so del phi del x, v is equal to minus del phi del y, and w is equal to minus del phi del z, right? And in polar coordinate, this Vr will be equal to minus of del phi del r. This V theta will be equal to minus of 1 by r del phi del theta, and Vz will be equal to minus of del phi del z. Right? It's simply coming out from this expression of gradient in cylindrical coordinate. Now you see this velocity potential, it has got certain other properties as well. It satisfies Laplace equation because the continuity equation, because it is inviscid, and continuity equation, let's assume further incompressible. This is del dot V is equal to 0. Now, this is del dot minus of grad of phi is equal to 0. So, it will be a harmonic function. Right? So, phi as phi x, y, z for steady state is a harmonic function. So now we will see there is a common domain where both the definition of velocity potential as well as the definition of stream function both are valid, and that's what let's see. That's called, basically this domain hydrodynamically is referred as potential. So what is that? You see, this is the domain of applicability of stream function. What is that? 2D incompressible flow. So here, this is the domain for xi. The application domain here, it is a 3D or any dimensional inviscid flow. Right? So that is the domain of phi. So their intersection is 2D incompressible inviscid flow. Right? And that is called potential flow. And there we will have some specific observation regarding phi and xi. So definitely you see 2D incompressible inviscid flow. Right? So phi, psi and phi. What are the properties? Now here, whenever it is inviscid, so this omega z will be equal to 0, and omega z is this z component of this angular velocity. So it will be this del v del x minus del u del y, because you see this is I, j, k, del x, del y, del z, u, v, w. So del x operating on v and del y, this del y operating on u. So del v del x minus del u del y. So you see this del v del x is equal to, this is equal to 0, right? So del v del x, it's minus of this, because v is minus of del xi del x, and this is del square xi del y square equal to 0. So obviously del square xi del x square del square xi del y square is equal to Laplacian of xi equal to 0. And phi is also satisfying the Laplacian. Automatically we have, originally we have proved it, this. And here this grad square is del square del x square plus del square del y square. So you see both phi, xi and phi are harmonic functions in potential. Right? Now there will be some isopotential line and streamlines. Isopotential lines means phi constant and streamlines means xi constant. So what will be this isopotential lines equation or rather characterization? So phi constant. So these are isopotential lines, right? So this is d phi, which is equal to del phi del x dx plus del phi del y dy, that's equal to 0. So the slope of isopotential line is minus of this del xi del x divided by del xi del y, which is minus of this u by v, because minus of del phi del x is equal to u and minus of del phi del y is equal to v, so minus sign cancels out and giving this. So next is the streamline, where xi is constant. So d xi del xi del x, or originally we know that. So dy dx xi constant, it has got a slope of v by u. So what we obtained, that dy dx xi constant into dy dx phi constant, that's equal to minus of this or v by u into minus of u by v, it's equal to minus 1. So herefrom we can conclude that isopotential lines and streamlines, they are orthogonal set of chord. So isopotential lines and streamlines are orthogonal set of chords, and actually you see that though we will not carry forward the discussion with the specific topic of what I am going to introduce, I will not do that because it is beyond our scope, but you must know, and there is a similitude we can actually fetch out with respect to complex analytic function. So you see that if I define some fz as this phi plus I into xi, if I define arbitrarily, if I define a complex function of phi and xi, these two are normal functions and I is a complex number, right? So this function fz will be analytic. Why? Because phi and xi are both harmonic functions. That's a property of analytic function, typical outcome of Cauchy-Riemann equation. And this phi equal to constant and xi equal to constant, they are forming an orthogonal set of chords, and that we have established in complex analysis. So this fz, with that, this fz is called the complex potential of the flow, and with that we can do many calculations. But we will not discuss that, just I've mentioned the name. So in the next session, what we will be discussing, the typical structure of this isopotential line and the streamline for different elementary flows like uniform flow, source flow, sink flow and vortex flow, right?